Men and women of Reddit, what is the s***iest thing you've ever done? Story 1. Alright, I'm by no means a man-or, but alcohol does a lot of things to a man. I was in the middle of an uncharacteristic hot streak that all my closest buddies had been witnessing over about 2 months, earning me a nickname I still carry to this day. It was a Friday night, and we were heading to a rave party at a warehouse where a DJ we all knew was playing some good house music. We'd pre-gamed excessively at my buddy's place. By the time we got there, we were absolutely hammered and ready to have a good time. None of us did hard drugs, but we were all functioning alcoholics who loved to dance and get wild when drunk. We paid the cover, got inside the warehouse filled with steam, strobes, thumping bass, and lots of decent-looking women wearing very little clothing. Heaven. After hitting the bathroom as soon as we got in, it was only about 11 p.m. at this point, we moved toward the main dance floor. Very quickly, I was drawn to a group of 2 cute Indian girls dancing on the edge with a black guy. The guy was yelling and having a great time, and as he danced with one of the girls, he called out to me to come dance with the other. I needed no second invitation. At the time, I was going through a serious curry fever and couldn't get enough. I instantly started dancing a little too close with the shorter Indian girl, who really knew how to back it up into me, and began exploring with her hands while I inched her shirt up, lingering around her bare belt line. We started making out. After about 2 songs, without having said a single word, she looked back at me and said we should get out of there and go back to my place. Naturally, I obliged. Without telling my friends, who had been watching the whole thing since we'd only been there 15 or 20 minutes, I slipped out the front exit with my new Hindu princess. We debated going to the nearby Motel 6 and getting a room, but decided to go to her place since it was closer. We tried hailing a taxi but had terrible luck. Between some intense makeouts and hand stuffs, our drives finally got the better of us. Spotting a lightly wooded area near the warehouse, I, almost blackout drunk at this point, suggested we go there for some privacy. She agreed and led me over, then pulled out my dong and gave me a decent BJ. The fact that we were in a not-so-nice neighborhood and in a fairly visible spot only heightened the excitement and probably made me think it was better than it actually was. We finished up, and at this point she was begging for more, so I said we needed to walk a bit further to find a cab. Finally, we found a cab, got in, and immediately started making out. The cabbie could clearly hear us, but I'm sure it wasn't the first time at midnight on a Friday that he dealt with this. As we continued, she suddenly blurted out, "I want you to bang me, right here, right now." I was stunned, even in my hammered state, and looked up to see if the cabbie heard her. Our eyes met in the rearview mirror, and he unmistakably nodded. It was on. My shame left me with the last drink I had. I don't remember much of the actual banging, other than it was exhilarating, and I remembered to put on a rubber. I was done about a mile from her place and tossed the used rubber out the window. As we got close to her place, she got a phone call and started talking loudly, saying she was in a cab, almost home, and that she'd see the person soon before hanging up. I didn't even have time to ask what it was about before we pulled up to her dorm. As she opened the door and I paid the cabbie, I heard screaming. I looked up to see a furious girl yelling at her and stomping her feet. Then the girl came flying toward the cab door, stuck her head in, and screamed at me. She has a boyfriend, you know, and he's been looking all over for her. And here she is, about to hook up with you. You should be ashamed of yourself. I didn't say a word, pocketed the money, and told the cabbie to head back to the party. I never got her name, said probably more than 20 sentences to her, and banged her in a cab. I felt awful the next day, but my buddies will always remember the story I told them when I stumbled back into that rave 2 hours later. Before we continue, do us a quick favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I'm a married man. So, I was at a conference with one of my female students and we ended up talking about physical intimacy. Finally, she tells me that her best friend, one of my students and at that stage my mistress, told her I have a huge dong. So, I ended up in her room pounding her out. We then had an affair for the next year without telling her best friend. Basically, I was cheating on the women I was cheating on my wife with. 3 months later, I went to a conference with a married female colleague and then started an affair with her. I went to visit her at home and banged her in her husband's bed. While we were in the middle of doing it, her mother dropped in for a surprise visit. We didn't open the door, just pretended no one heard the knocking even though my car was parked in front on the lawn. She of course didn't know about the 2 student girlfriends. It was the best year of my life. And I don't feel guilty at all. On more than one occasion, one of them or my wife ended up giving me a bowie after I had banged earlier with one of the others. I didn't use any protection. So, I was cheating on my wife with a student. I cheated on this student with her best friend, and I cheated on this best friend with a female colleague. I have a photo of me posing with all 3 mistresses at a graduation function. I think of it as my hat trick. Edit, I was asked why I cheated. OP did specify that this is for the man-ors, right? The question doesn't even make sense to me. I cheated because I can, and what man in his 40s will say no to hot young student tush? Story 3. I banged 25 guys in Thailand in 3 months when I was 19. On beaches, in dorms, public places, nasty bathrooms, just feet away from other people sleeping. Blowy, back doors, 3 scores, all of it. I was either drunk, high, or sober. Sometimes without rubber. Yes, I know, that was very stupid. I was pretty an or through my early 20s. I worked in a bar and picked up lots of hot young guys, banged in alleyways, hostels, parks. Eventually, I figured I might as well start charging for it. At 21, I became an S-worker at a high-class bordello in Australia. I don't even know how many clients I had in total, maybe hundreds. Made around $1,400 per night, give or take. Most were married or had girlfriends. That was one hell of a year. Story 4. I was dating a very religious cheerleader in high school who just wouldn't give it up. We had a lot of fun, but no banging. This went on for about a year, and I started getting frustrated. All my friends were losing their V-cards, and all I'd had was a handy. Then this smoking hot strawberry blonde moved to town. My girlfriend at the time was mentoring her in cheerleading. When I was introduced to her, there was instant chemistry between us. I had a couple of classes with the new girl, and our conversations got pretty heated, to say the least. One night, while my parents were out and all my siblings were asleep, I invited her over to study. She showed up wearing the hottest short skirt and low-cut top I'd seen up to that point. Within minutes, I asked if she wanted to see something cool. She agreed, so I took her to my basement, where my brothers and sisters had a fully functional bouncy house moonwalk. I'll never forget the epic view of her inner and perfect cheeks as she provocatively crawled inside. I'm pretty sure I sprinted and dove in after her. We ended up doing it twice before my parents got back. To this day, neither my parents nor my siblings know that I defiled that place of innocence they still use. The 2 cheerleaders ended up having some pretty epic yelling matches, and even some physical fights in the months that followed. But honestly, I'm just proud to have lost my V-card in a frigging bouncy house. Story 5. I had a 3 score with a father and son. A bang buddy of mine who called himself Bi at the time asked if I'd like to go out to his dad's place for the weekend. The house was in the woods, off some dirt road, and took a good hour to get there. Horny 25-year-old me thought that was a fantastic idea. The guy's dad was supposed to be away for the weekend. I got up there late Friday afternoon, and we started drinking and doing it everywhere. We did it on every surface in the house, and even in a few spots outside. We passed out, woke up on Saturday, and just started all over again. We were having a great time and did not listen for anyone because we were supposed to be alone in the middle of nowhere. Sometime later, I don't know how, neither of us heard his dad's car pull up the house or him walk in the front door or walk into the living room where his son was going through my back door. What happened next was the most unreal corno thing to ever happen to me. We both turned our heads, and the dad said something like, "So you go both ways too?" His son just nodded his head, and then he said, "Well, if your friend would let me, I'd like a turn next." We looked at each other and just kind of shrugged. I motioned to his father to come over, and I start giving him a blowy him while his son started banging me again. They took their turn and switched places, and we eventually finished with our thing. He told us to give him a few minutes and to meet him in the hot tub out back. I grabbed a bottle of rum from the kitchen, and we headed out back. The dad comes out completely bare, in pretty decent shape for a guy in his early 50s, and sits down right next to me. He told us he hadn't been with a guy since before his marriage and wanted to make the most of this situation. Then we banged again for the rest of the night. We woke up Sunday morning, and the father made us breakfast, and then we left. If I'm being honest, it was an incredible night, only made better by the seediness of it. Would never do it again, but I still solo off to the memories, 8 years later. Also, the dad eventually got remarried, and the son got married too. I went to both weddings. Story 6. I slept with my girlfriend's younger sister. I was 20, and she had just turned 18. They're both tall, about 5'11", and look strikingly similar until you get up close. Same wild, long, frizzy hair, same body type, same eyes, even the same fashion sense. At family dinners, I got along well with her brothers and sister, but never well enough to suspect anything beyond just being friendly with your significant other's siblings. One night, I was at their house, watching a movie with my girlfriend and her sister. We all must have fallen asleep on the couch. When I woke up, I noticed my girlfriend had shifted in her sleep, and we were on opposite ends of the couch, but her sister was cuddled very close to me. I tried moving her slowly so I wouldn't wake her. But she opened her eyes, yawned, and asked what time it was. From what I remember, it was around 2 a.m. I'd been to their house enough to know where all the coffee supplies were, so I got cups for both of us. We talked for a few minutes about how she felt about graduating, where she applied to college, and other small talk. Then for some reason the subject shifted, and she shyly admitted she had a thing for me. She said it hesitantly, like she was trying to make it easier for herself to say. I'm a one-woman guy now, but I haven't always been. My girlfriend had a shapely figure, but her sister out-curved her in every way. So, when I saw my chance, I didn't hesitate. I leaned in, and we started making out. We twitched a couple of times whenever we thought we heard movement in the house. She decided we'd be safer in her room. I should have known where that would lead, but I was tired and didn't think. As soon as the door closed, we attacked each other with ferocity. She jumped on me, and I threw her onto the bed. Despite my exhaustion, we spent a while exploring each other, feeling, seeing, tasting. The whole time, one of our hands was clamped over the other's mouth to keep quiet so her family wouldn't hear. I was surprised to hear the doorknob turn. My first instinct, being the cunning ninja that I am, was to pull the covers over myself while sitting up in bed. I didn't have the presence of mind to lie back. It was my girlfriend. She's blind as a bat without her glasses, and it was really dark, so I lucked out. She asked her sister where I sit gone, and she said, "Oh, he went home, said he didn't want to wake you." Whatever my girlfriend said in response, I forgot it as soon as the door closed because we immediately went back at it, this time all the way. We banged as quietly as possible until I snuck out her window around 4 in the morning. Story 7. So, story time. Back in high school, I was dating this girl, let's call her. We had been together throughout high school, but it was pretty on and off. I kept dumping her to hook up with other girls. At one point, I decided I didn't want to stop banging her, but I also wanted the freedom to do it with whoever I wanted. Sleazy, I know. But she agreed. I like to call that the bang buddy phase of our relationship. Fast forward, I'm sleeping with all kinds of girls without a care in the world, still hooking up with A the entire time. Then come K and Ra, both incredibly hot and wild. I mess around with K a bit and start laying the groundwork with R. Meanwhile, A's still coming over and doing with me regularly. Eventually, she catches wind of K and instantly hates her with a burning passion. I kept doing what I was doing anyway. Then one day, K spent the night. We banged. It was incredible. She could dislocate her hips and pop them back into place while on top, and to this day it was one of the best sensations I've experienced to date. So, we woke up, and I sent her on her merry way, none the wiser. Part 2. I shows up unannounced, wearing some ridiculously skimpy clothes. I did what any self-respecting horny person would do, plowed her all over the house. After we finished, we had a talk about our relationship. Then my phone rang. It was R and she was clearly down to bang. So I sent a harn her way and called R over. Ren came over looking amazing. We hung out, talked a bit, just beasing. Then I got up to grab something, and in the reflection of my full-length mirror, I saw her taking off her bra. This girl had massive, perfect chesticles. It was honestly one of the best sights I'd ever seen. That image of her cocoa melons popping out for the first time is burned into my brain, probably forever. Then I turned around, and she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Stop being a wuss and come pound me already." That was so hot. The banging wasn't as great as with the other two girls, but those chesticles will forever be stored in the spank bank. She gave me a blowy, and after I was done, I kicked her out. And that wrapped up the best day of my intimate career. 3 girls in one day, one after the other, no shower in between. I was such a sleazeball. I've got a few other wild stories, but none quite top this one. For the record, I'm not like that anymore. I do look back on it rather fondly, but I've got the most badass girl now, and I wouldn't dream of doing anything like that to her. But and I were pretty dysfunctional, and by pretty, I mean extremely. Story 8. Not using a throwaway for this, because honestly, it was the best birthday present ever, and I still look back on it fondly. I basically slept with my World of Warcraft guild. Back when my girlfriend, now wife, and I were playing World of Warcraft, we got really close with some awesome people from our guild. She was still in college at the time, and we ended up organizing a trip where they flew out to stay with us for a few days. No real shady or sinister intentions, just hanging out with our online friends. Once they arrived, we partied hard every night. Not long after, my girlfriend and I ended up having a 3-way with one of them. I have the best wife ever. This went on for a few nights, and I was living it up, just me and 2 incredible girls, having the time of my life. Cut to a massive blizzard that snowed us in, stocked with a store's worth of alcohol, nowhere to go, and nothing but free time in close quarters. That night, the 3 of us were already planning to have some more fun. But somewhere in the middle of our tipsy conversations, another girl from our guild came and sat on the bed with us to chat. Not long after, one of my girlfriend's good friends from university wandered in and joined. So there I was, in our room with the door closed, sitting with 4 beautiful women while the rest of the group hung out in the living room. It was freezing outside, but inside, the body heat was fogging up the windows, and slowly, the clothes started coming off. Needless to say, fooling around commenced. And I was in heaven. We were all buzzed and lost in bliss. Until that week, I had never been involved with more than 1 person, and now here I was with 4. Let me just say, it was as amazing as it sounds, but the amount of effort it took was almost not worth it. At one point, I actually had to take a breather and got up just to catch my breath. Meanwhile, they didn't miss a beat. We went at it for at least an hour, and I was exhausted, still hadn't finished. I had to crack open the window to let out some of the intense heat. One of them pulled me back to bed, and thankfully, I didn't have to do much of the work after that. My girlfriend and I shared something incredible that night. We all collapsed into a tangled pile of naked flesh and slept the rest of the night. The others in the main room probably knew what was happening. The next morning, we simply got dressed and didn't talk about it. It wasn't an "oh God, I regret this" kind of silence, more like a meh. We're mature adults, and it was fun vibe. One of the girls' bras was lying in the corner of our room next to an empty Corona bottle. For some reason, I took a picture of it, and it kind of looks like a melancholic album cover. It was the best birthday ever. Story 9. A couple of years ago, I worked at a Fortune 500 company. My boss was a woman, and we were both in our early 30s. She was stunning, especially her cakes. I had never seen a more perfect one. One day she brought up that promotion season was approaching and asked who I thought would be the best candidate. She told me I was a great analyst, and that she wanted someone who could analyze well. I agreed, saying I was indeed a strong analyst. She said the only issue was my social skills. I was a bit shy. She suggested we go to dinner to talk about it, and I agreed. She hadn't mentioned right away that the dinner would be at her home. After work she offered to drive, and I agreed. On the way she made a quick stop at a Walgreens. While I waited in the car, when she returned she casually said she had to grab some Astroglide. Once we arrived at her place, she told me she needed to change. When she came back, she was wearing shorts that somehow made her already incredible figure even more striking. We had dinner, some good food, a bit of fine wine. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "Let me be straight. Are you into backdoors?" I was silent for about 15 seconds, stunned. Then I said yes. She told me to head to her bedroom and get ready, that she'd join me in a moment. I did as she said. 5 minutes later she walked in, completely bare, and wearing a massive strappy. Story 10. I'm a Craigslist freak. I've slept with 80 girls I met online. One time, I had a perfect week. 7 girls in 7 days. I've had 3 girls in the same day a couple of times, and 2 in a day countless time. Once, I even slept with 2 girls named Anna at the same time. That was pretty sweet. I always, except for one time, showered between partners. Seems like a polite thing to do, and I can only hope it's reciprocated. I even made an info website about my adventures, and I'm working on improving it. I'm trying to create a new social paradigm, usher in a new era of licentiousness. I can't believe how many girls have asked me to do it on their face. One time, this girl had her husband drop her off at my place and wait outside while I was with her. It was Valentine's Day and freezing cold out. Good times. Story 11. A few years ago, I was backpacking around Laos, staying in Vang Vieng, the place known for heavy drinking, smoking, and floating down the river in tire tubes. I met this English girl there, not super attractive, maybe a 6 out of 10, but we hit it off. We were making out and having a great time, so I took her back to my hotel. I shared a room with another girl, so we went to an unlocked, empty room elsewhere in the hotel. We started making out. Then I began to focus on her. She was totally into it, peeking 3 times before saying she'd had enough and needed to sleep. I was standing there, with a raging stiffy, so I did what any gentleman would do. I soloed off all over her face. She woke up confused, started swearing, but was too drunk and just passed out again. I left her there and went to sleep. The next day, the hotel owner was banging on the door, asking who knew the bare girl staying downstairs. A couple of days later, I was on a bus headed somewhere else. Being the a-hole I am, I put my bag on the seat next to me so I wouldn't have to share it during the 7-hour ride. I didn't realize the bus was fully booked. Every seat taken, except the one with my bag on it. Then who walks on? Good old smoothie face. I groaned, moved my bag, and she sat down, shooting me the most evil look before staring out the window. I said nothing, took about 6 Valiums, and slept through the entire bus trip. I never saw her again. Story 12. I have one and only one great and horrifying story. About 4 months ago, I was at my friend's house. We'd known each other for a decent amount of time, probably around a year. It was about 10 at night, and only she and her mom were home. Her dad works overnight security or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. After taking 3 consecutive shots each, things escalated. We started making out. She pulled me out and gave me blowy. I returned the favor, and before long we were doing it. At this point, we were both fairly twizzled. As we continued doing it, I heard the door open behind me. There stood the mother. I froze up like a deer in headlights, and my friend does the same, pulling the covers over her. The mother walked over and gave me 2 options. 1. I can leave, and she'll tell her husband. Daddy is not only a gun enthusiast but loves his daughter to death. 2. She's gonna join us, and she won't say a word. I looked at my friend and she decided for me and starts giving me blowy again with the mother in front of me, then joins her daughter on the bed. At this point, I was feeling 2 things. 1, fearing for my life, and 2, the most charged and excited I've ever been. After we were done, she throws me my pants and tells me to get out ASAP. I managed to put my boxers on and run out with my shirt and pants in my hand. Story 13. In my senior year a few years back, I had a huge crush on a friend's mom. She was a sexy blonde biker girl with an incredible body. I was bang buddies with the friend and was constantly over at the house. Her mom thought I was nice and said I was always welcome around. While they weren't home one day, I banged my friend on her mom's bed. During this, my friend's sister Cassie moved back into the house after dropping out of college freshman year due to pill popping. About a week later, my friend's mom hired me to teach her how to play guitar, and I began showing up there a lot more often. I know it's hard to believe, but I managed to bang the 2 sisters. Cassie and I got screwed up together one night. When no one was home, we were high and we did it. And eventually their mom, who started showing signs while we practiced guitar, such as resting her hands on mine and pushing her jugs against my arm. At first I ignored it, and then one day I turned to her and we started making out. It seriously just kinda happened. My friend only knew I banged her sister, which she was okay with as long as I gave her more time than Cass, and neither of them found out about their mom. Although I continued to admit it to them with grins from time to time. My confessions were always taken by the two girls as lewd jokes, thanks to my twisted sense of humor. Story 14. I have too many stories for this thread. One time in Monterey, California, I was at this Indian bar casually talking to a Cuban grandma at the bar. She told me to follow her, so I did. Next thing, we're in the bathroom and she's peeing on the toilet. She says, "Whip out your dong." I was young and drunk, so I complied. She started giving me blowy. I felt like a king. Now there was only one bathroom in the entire bar, so by this point, people were banging on the door, needing to go. I didn't care. I laid her on the floor and kept going. The banging on the door got louder, so I stopped. I told her, "Okay, here's the plan. I'm going to turn off the lights and leave. You count to 10, then you leave, okay?" She agreed. I opened the door and there was this grizzly, overweight guy in a baseball cap just standing there. I slipped past him, made a dash into the bar, and spent the rest of the night enjoying myself with my friends. After the bar closed, I saw the Cuban lady sitting on a bench outside, crying. Apparently, the guy who was standing in the doorway was her boyfriend. He knew what had happened and broke up with her on the spot. Story 15. I had to make a throwaway for this one. It begins the day after I broke up with my boyfriend. That evening I invited guy number 1 over for some emotional comfort, if you catch my meaning. We had a lovely bang and then ate some Chinese food afterward. That night I was drinking at a friend's apartment when guy number 2 texted me. He said our mutual friend's hot sister was at his place and down to hook up, and if I wanted in, I should get there as soon as possible. Naturally, I couldn't turn down such a classy invitation, so I got my drunk self over there as fast as I could for what turned out to be my very first 3 score. Somehow, I ended up taking the lead, playing a bit of a softcore dom for the night. Keep in mind, this was about 5 hours after guy number 1, so when guy number 2 revealed a monster dong, my body hesitated. But my libido didn't. The 3 of us had a great time, and I even got to play with the girl's pet cat afterward. Oh, how the puns abound. I'd mostly sobered up by then, and I wasn't exactly thrilled about going back to my room. My roommate's boyfriend was visiting. It wasn't the idea of them hooking up that bothered me. I just would felt left out. So, who offers to let me crash with him? None other than my ex-boyfriend of 2 days. I was pretty tuckered out and fell asleep almost immediately, but by 9 in the morning, I got the classic stiffy alarm poking me in the back. Somehow my poor exhausted love cavern endured round 3 of dong, this time courtesy of my very recent ex. Afterward, I waddled back to my room and went straight into the shower. Oh, and I'm still good friends with everyone involved. So, I had 3 encounters with 4 different people within 14 hours. Story 16. I have one, and only one great and horrifying story. About 4 months ago, I was at my friend's house. We'd known each other for a decent amount of time, probably around a year. It was about 10 at night, and only she and her mom were home. Her dad works overnight security or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. After taking 3 consecutive shots each, things escalated. We started making out, she pulled me out, and gave me blowy. I returned the favor, and before long we were doing it. At this point, we were both fairly twizzled. As we continued doing it, I heard the door open behind me. There stood the mother. I froze up like a deer in headlights, and my friend does the same, pulling the covers over her. The mother walked over and gave me 2 options. 3. I can leave, and she'll tell her husband. Daddy is not only a gun enthusiast, but loves his daughter to death. 4. She's gonna join us, and she won't say a word. I looked at my friend, and she decided for me and starts giving me blowy again with the mother in front of me, then joins her daughter on the bed. At this point, I was feeling 2 things. 1, fearing for my life, and 2, the most charged and excited I've ever been. After we were done, she throws me my pants and tells me to get out ASAP. I managed to put my boxers on and run out with my shirt and pants in my hand. Story 17. I'm not sure if this is the sleaziest thing I've done, but I sure hope it is. It's the only thing that really comes to mind. I had been dating a girl for about a month. That's not a long time, but we'd been amazing friends since 7th grade. This all happened during my senior year of high school. We were hanging out in her room when, for whatever reason, I decided I didn't want to be with her anymore. This after I'd practically begged her to be mine in the first place. I broke up with her right then and there. She started crying, asking if she had done something wrong. Apparently, in that short month, I had been a pretty good boyfriend because she said she didn't want to let me go. I apologized, told her it had to be done, and promised we could still be friends, that it wouldn't be weird. As I was about to leave, she asked if we could bang. She'd been holding out and wanted to wait, so I figured this was her last-ditch effort to rekindle things. I turned her down, telling her I wasn't in the mood. Then I walked out of her room and closed the door behind me. Just as I was about to leave, I heard my name called from the next room, so I casually walked in. It was her older sister in her inners. Oh, sweet holy Jesus, that was a sight to behold. She asked, "Why is Jess crying?" Crap. She must have heard when I opened the door earlier. I explained everything that had just happened, including her sister's offer. She smiled and said, "Well, if you're single and ready to go, I could use a good bang." No way. I knew that would ruin any chance of keeping a friendship with the girl I just dumped, but we did it for a good 40 minutes. When we were done, I got up, put on my pants, and stepped out of the room. As I turned around, there was Jess just coming out of her room, catching sight of me, sweaty and leaving her sister's room. Well, bye, was all I could say. I heard her break down as I walked away. I felt horrible and knew I had lost a good friend. Story 18. Summer of 2006, I had just graduated high school and was living in a 3-story house with my best friend Carl. One day, we were on the balcony smoking bowls when a little Asian booty call, Jennifer, who both of us had passed back and forth, hit me up. Turns out her car had broken down about a mile from my house and she needed a ride. I was high and said, "Hell no, I said not driving anywhere." She then told me she had twin sisters, Daisy and Dawn, with her who had just arrived from Las Vegas. I said I'll be there in 5 minutes. I went and picked the 3 of them up, leaving her car on the side of the road and headed back to my place. After a couple of hours of blazing and having a good time, it started getting dark. Carl and I were on the balcony when I noticed flashes coming from inside the room. I looked in and saw the twins getting bare and taking pictures with a disposable camera I had. Yes, I still have those pictures. Getting them developed was definitely an interesting experience. Oh, I forgot to mention, I invited one of my buddies, Brandon, over to even out the numbers. Funny enough, about 20 minutes after the pictures, Dawn was practically throwing herself at Brandon, and Daisy made it pretty clear she was going to be with me. But, for some reason, Brandon didn't take the hint and ended up leaving. Dawn was quite perturbed by this and just laid on the bed. I smoothly walked over, sat next to her, and started giving her some much-needed attention, while Daisy was in the restroom. I hadn't even been at it for 2 minutes before she flipped over, grabbed my head, and kissed me. Daisy came back in and got a little pissed, saying Dawn stole another guy from me. I told her she didn't steal anything, I was just keeping her company. She complained that Dawn was always trying to outdo her, and I responded, "Well, show me what you've got then, ladies. I'll be the judge." It's called... I kid you not. I never expected that line to work. Holy crap, was I wrong. I should probably mention that while this was going on, my buddy Carl was pounding the hell out of our little Asian friend, and I'm pretty damn sure the neighbors knew it too. Needless to say, I banged the twins a couple more times that night. Individually, not together. I honestly didn't get a wink of sleep that night. My buddy Carl can confirm the 3 of us were still doing it when he and Jennifer went to bed, and still going when they woke up. Best night of my life. I'll never forget it, and I'll keep those pictures for life. Story 19. After a long night of drinking, I was in bed with 2 good girl friends, let's call them Squirtle and Bulbasaur, just planning to crash and get some much-needed sleep. The thing is, Squirtle and I had blackout drunk banging a week before. None of our friends knew about it yet, so of course Bulbasaur kept teasing us mercilessly. We all laughed for a while before starting to settle down. A perfect chance for Squirtle and me to try a sneaky hookup, but we got caught. So I just played it off like it was a big joke. Me and Squirtle bouncing the bed up and down, laughing and making fake clapping noises to crack up Bulbasaur and Squirtle, but it was pitch dark and a big bed, and Bulbasaur couldn't tell that I'd already been with Squirtle, and we were actually having ridiculous banging while pretending to fake it. After Bulbasaur fell asleep, Squirtle and I slipped off to the closet to finish our romp hydro pump. Story 20. Although this toned-down version rarely gets believed by anyone I tell, here goes. I was in Wichita Falls, Texas, with some friends when we hit up a club called Texas Showgirls, a pretty classy joint. The best-looking dancer there was named Phoebe. When I asked why she picked that name, she said it sounded exotic. Turns out, the woman working behind the bar, the one who showed me her enormous tits after I mentioned it was my first club, is actually Phoebe's real-life mom. She told me this while giving me a peek at her fun box. Oh, and it's a topless-only bar, by the way. Anyway, one of the girls I was with was married and got me hammered drunk. She convinced me to have a three-way with her and Phoebe in the back room. She was paying for it. I obliged. I took a quick bathroom break to buy a 50-cent rubber, but didn't end up using it. I headed into the back room and did it with the 22-year-old married woman and the dancer. Just as I was putting my belt through the last loop on my waist, the lights flicked on. Enter the manager, who, coincidentally, was Phoebe's real-life father. Go figure. He caught his daughter doing it with the married woman, with me behind her putting my belt on. Never been more satisfied with someone else's facial expression. We all made a quick exit after that, and the whole thing was never really discussed. There were about 12 of us, 5 guys and 7 girls, and we decided to get hotel rooms. By the time we arrived, it was pretty late, and most people were nearly out cold. Jen, the married girl, fell asleep in my bed. I stepped outside my room to figure out my next move, because I wanted to hook up with another girl in the group, Laura, who was sleeping in the same room. I looked through the window of her room and gave her the finger in the OK sign, the international sign for banging. Then I pointed at her and myself. She shrugged like, sure, why not? I went back in, moved Jen to the adjoining bed, and banged Laura. To recap, I was now banging another girl, right after doing with a dancer and the married woman in the back room of a club. Sleep followed. The next morning, Jen wasn't happy about me sleeping with Laura. It turns out she actually liked me. At breakfast, she made her disgust about the situation pretty public. Everyone had a laugh. Everyone except Laura. She said nothing, and sat quietly in the corner of the IHOP booth. Turns out, she was a 20-year-old virgin who had just done something she couldn't even put into words. Story 21. I banged my brother's girlfriend. Neither of us were drunk. It was like something straight out of a corn. My brother had left the house for a bit, and she was asleep. They were staying at my place for a while. She woke up, came out to the living room where I was, and asked where my brother was. I told her he was out. Just an FYI, I'm a bum guy. And she had a beautiful one. We were sitting on the couch when the topic of intimacy came up. I told her I was into cheeks, and she asked what I thought about hers. I told her it was one of the most beautiful I'd ever seen. She laughed and said, "You really think so?" I told her yes. She said my brother wasn't really into her cheeks much, so hearing that I liked them was a bit exciting. As the conversation went on, she mentioned she'd always wanted to try backdoor play, but my brother was grossed out by it. I told her I loved it and would taste it right then if she let me. She bit her lip and said okay. It drove her wild, and we went at it with crazy banging. Then, in the middle of it, my brother came home, opened the door, got down on the floor, and, well, everyone walked that dinosaur. Story 22. I live in Ohio and flew to New York for a concert. At the show, I noticed this girl checking me out, but before I could say a word, she started making out with some guy. Fast forward to when I'm back in Ohio. I decide to see if I can find her on Facebook. I have an incredibly creepy talent for tracking down anyone on there, but that's a story for another day. Sure enough, I found her, and she remembered me. So, I flew back out there the next week, and met her in Times Square. She said she needed to use the bathroom, so we went to a nearby hotel. Once inside, she looked up and asked, "Do you think we could get on the roof?" I wasn't sure, so we took the elevator to the top floor and headed into the service stairs. When we realized we couldn't get to the roof without setting off an alarm, we just started banging right there. It was a bit tricky since she was much shorter than me, but being light helped. Afterwards, we went to McDonald's where she bought me food, and then I headed home. Haven't seen her since. Story 23. I can confirm that AOL chat rooms were mostly for hooking up, and only one guy had a tiny dong out of, I don't remember how many, one time. I was with a guy who wanted a blowy, a rough one. I was game, but 2 minutes in, I puked all over him. The last experience was the straw that broke the camel's back. I agreed to meet this Armenian guy who even offered to pay me. He wanted to be a sugar daddy. When I got there, he asked for ID because I didn't look 18, and honestly, I still don't look my age. He checked it, gave it back, then turned me around and pounded me hard, no prep, and it hurt like hell. After he finished, he kissed me. As we made our way to the bathroom for him to shave my downtown area, he had an allergic reaction to my lipstick. He paid me. I got the hell out of there and never used chat rooms to hook up again. I met someone at my university's anime club who introduced me to group bangings. I went to 3 of them and ended up doing it with men older than my father. I used Craigslist to find a guy. I met him for the first time at Barnes & Noble, and in the parking lot I gave him a blowy as he ordered. We had another session that I really enjoyed, but sadly he got into a car accident, and that was the end of it. I banged my current boyfriend, who I had just met at the time, in the parking lot of our mutual friend's apartment building. My car has seen quite a few of those trysts. I can't share the other stories about us here, because everyone involved is on this site. Oh yeah, I've done plenty of car banging, once next to a supposedly haunted house, in the parking lot at the beach, on a hill near a business complex. My boyfriend works there, but this was before I met him, in the utility closet of a 7-Eleven, and again on a car behind one of the Coast Guard's new buildings. Story 24. This happened about 2 months ago. I was at my neighbor's college graduation party. But there were many cute single girls. Halfway through the night, this gorgeous girl, let's call her Ashley, walked past me. She was about 5'10", blonde hair, blue eyes, legs for days, and an incredible cheeks. She was a friend of a friend, and according to my neighbor, she thought I was cute. Later, after about 5 shots and a few beers, we all jumped in the pool. Me, my buddy Ashley, and her friend. Things got pretty heavy pretty fast. Even though Ashley's friend's dad was sitting about 10 feet away from us, I decided to dip with Ashley and take her back to my place. After about 10 minutes of convincing her, I'd cook her breakfast. I had her bare and was going to town. My God, did I go to town? I've never tasted a pie that good. And it felt even better. I honestly did things I don't normally do. It finally ended around 4 a.m. after I'd unloaded for the 6th time. My friend and his girl were doing their thing on the floor right next to us and eventually just watched. No, I never did get to make her breakfast. She had to work, but I totally would have. She's an absolute sweetheart, and we still talk here and there. I'm hoping we end up dating. Story 25. I lived with 3 other guys in a 2-bedroom apartment. We had 2 house rules. 1, drink that frigging water, it's a long story. And 2, if the doorknob has a sock on it, don't knock. The room's occupied. So one day my ex-girlfriend comes over. About an hour in, we're doing it on my bed. The tube sock isn't just hanging on the doorknob, it's tied around the handle so it can turn. Maybe 10 minutes into it, the door suddenly opens. My roommate, completely stoned out of his mind, is standing there holding the sock. And there I am, completely bare with my girlfriend, nothing covering either of us. My roommate just dropped the sock and said, "I'm going to bed." He climbed into his mattress on the floor. Our beds formed a T-junction because he tried cleaning all his stuff, and his real bed was covered in random crap. His head ended up right next to my arm and my girlfriend's chesticle. I leaned over to her ear and asked if we should take it to the kitchen or bathroom, small apartment after all. She just replied, "No, screw him. We were here first." Perfect logic. So, we kept doing it so close to my roommate's head that I could feel his hair rub my arm in our rhythm until about an hour later when she accidentally woke him up with some noises. The next day, I woke up, grabbed a beer. Shower beers are amazing, by the way. I highly recommend, and headed to the shower. When I came out into the living room, my roommate was standing at the end of the hallway. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I will never be able to look at you the same again." I have never felt more accomplished. And at the same time, my relationship with that roommate actually did change after that. Story 26. Gather round, fellow Redditors, and let me share a story I've told here before. Back in the day, I worked at this go-kart track and amusement park. A terrible place where the only people amused were the bratty kids. I was stuck in the dark corners of laser tag. There was a prep room where players first came in, got suited up, and were briefed. Then came the maze itself. The prep room was my castle, my little hobbit hole. When no one was playing, that's where I hung out. It wasn't so bad. As long as I did my job and no one complained, they pretty much forgot I existed. I'd do homework, backdoor the security camera monitor computer to surf the web, listen to music. Generally, it was great, if it weren't for the damn customers. One day, this girl randomly added me on MySpace. Yeah, we're talking late MySpace era, and we started chatting. It was a slow morning shift, so I joked that she should come see me. She giggled and said, "Wouldn't that be fun? We could make out under the black lights." She showed up. I'd hoped her pictures didn't do her justice. But no. This poor thing had horrible teeth, wasn't attractive to me, and was probably 100 pounds overweight. And trust me, I'm saying that as a fat guy myself. I don't say that often, because, glass houses and all. I felt bad. So I made out with her and did some hand stuff right there while on the clock, and no one was the wiser because I'd stopped the prep room's security camera from recording, or so I thought. Turns out, I worked with a big-mouthed Dominican who saw it all. Now, a lot of my former coworkers know about my blacklight escapades. Story 27. I got invited to a party. Looking back, I think they just needed a ride, but it ended up being the best night of my life. When I got there, I was introduced to beer pong. Fun game, but I was absolutely terrible at it, and ended up drinking way too much. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise. As I was heading back to my car, a gorgeous blonde stopped me. She noticed how drunk I was, took my keys, and asked if I wanted to go home. I slurred out, "Yes," and she drove. We ended up in a cornfield in the middle of Cherry Valley where she proceeded to pound me. Next morning I woke up to handshakes and pats on the back from my dad. I had no idea why, until I went downstairs and saw the same blonde half-bear at the breakfast table, casually chatting with my parents like nothing was out of the ordinary. My dad pulled me aside and suggested I check my car. I looked inside, and the entire ceiling was covered in footprints. Instant flashback, plowing the blonde with her feet in the air, pressed against the roof. What a night. Story 28. I'd been talking to this guy from high school. Let's call him Brad. For reasons unknown to me, it fizzled out. No drama, just stopped. Anyway, Brad and I have a mutual friend, Jake, who was throwing a little get-together and invited me. I was bored, so I went. And lo and behold, Brad was there, but he kind of ignored me. While I was milling around, I spotted someone else I knew from back in high school, Timmy. We'd had a little freshman year fling, nothing serious, but enough for some memories. We started talking, mostly bonding over how much we hated our customer service jobs. Then Timmy started handing me shots. I had work the next morning and hadn't planned to drink, but they were free shots. I wasn't gonna say no. Turns out Timmy's a sneaky little bastard, because before I knew it I was buzzed and feeling flirty. The conversation started to get more suggestive. I noticed Brad noticing, but I didn't care. Eventually, Timmy and I snuck off and started seriously making out. Things escalated fast, and I ended up giving him blowy in my car. When we got back, it was very obvious to everyone that something had gone down. Timmy had to leave, and I figured I should dip too. Brad and Jake insisted I shouldn't drive, but I felt fine, so I left. Later that night, Brad starts texting me saying how much the night sucked. I got a little annoyed and said something like, "Well, what was I supposed to do? You're the one who stopped talking to me." That's when Brad told me he'd backed off because Jake apparently had a crush on me. And since Jake's not exactly great with women, Brad wanted to give him a shot, but when he saw me with Timmy, he got jealous. Really jealous, and said he couldn't stop wishing it had been him. We kept texting, one thing led to another, and eventually we agreed that I'd sneak back over to Jake's place. And yeah, we banged. So that night, I banged 2 guys within 2 hours. Story 29. Finally, my time to shine. Where do I start? The worst was probably when I posted on Craigslist in the Women Seeking Men section and got an email from this guy. He said he was looking for a situation where he'd pay me 4 figures per date. 4 figures for a date. I was a broke idiot, and it honestly sounded too good to pass up, even if he was 17 years older. We talked for a while. He was extremely sweet and really enjoyed getting to know me. We finally met while he was staying at a hotel for a meeting. He wasn't ugly. Definitely not my type though. We went up to the room, ate, watched some TV, and eventually banged. I laid awake for hours feeling awful about myself. It just felt wrong. I had been going down a very slutty path, and this was the wake-up call. I realized I was basically putting myself out like an S-worker. In the morning, I politely declined a second round, said yes to seeing him again, then later texted him saying I couldn't continue. He was disappointed but understood. Story 30. A girl at a party once asked to sleep in my bed, so I let her. Not a big deal. Great party. Fast forward about 10 months. I saw her again and got her number. She was at least 7 months pregnant at the time. I'd had a thing for pregnant girls for about a year, so I went with it. We ended up at her place, messed around a bit, and I got her to give me a blowy. It was one of those where she clearly wasn't into it, but I pushed for it, and she went along. Afterward, she said I owed her, and that I had to sleep over. She took an Ambien and knocked out on the couch next to me. Sometime in the middle of the night, I slipped out like a damn ninja. Never called her again. A few days later, she reached out and I made up some excuse, too much of a coward to admit I just wanted easy bang with a pregnant girl. Side note. A lot of the time, pregnant women without a partner are instinctively looking for someone to help raise the kid. She wanted that. Yeah, I feel pretty messed up about it. How's that for a real piece of crap story? Story 31. I grew up in kind of a small town. There was this guy from a couple of towns over who was dating my friend, but her parents were really strict. She had to be home by 10. Meanwhile, I was a latchkey kid and allowed to run wild. So after he walked her home, he'd come over and throw rocks at my bedroom window until I came out. We'd go bang in playgrounds, cemeteries, and places like that. Neither of us told a soul. They broke up, but we decided to lay low before making it official that we were seeing each other. In the meantime, we got into a fight, and he decided to get back at me by courting another friend of mine. She went for it, which pissed me off, even though I'd never told her he and I had already been sleeping together. Her parents were more relaxed, but she was prudish, so she only let him get to third base. Then he'd show up at my place around 2 in the morning, clean off the toy he always carried, and we'd bang. They eventually broke up, and shortly after that, he and I started dating for real. It lasted about 6 weeks, until he cheated on me with 2 girls and then left me for one of them. None of that was surprising, but what really sucked was that he told his new girlfriend how he'd been sleeping with me while dating the other 2. One of them was actually close friends with the new girlfriend. And that's how I came to be known as a giant whore for sleeping with one guy. Story 32. Okay, I have a few stories, but I think this is the worst. Get comfy. It's a long one. I grew up pretty awkward, with horrible self-esteem, and didn't really come out of my shell until I was 24. I'm now 33. Around 23 or 24, I started to realize I was actually pretty good looking and went wild. The only problem was that I'd been dating the same girl since I was 17, and we'd been living together for 2 years at this point. Oh, and the year before this, I had gotten her a job where I worked as well. I started going out more, and before coming out of my shell, I rarely drank or partied. I didn't even drink until my 21st birthday. But the more I went out and the more attention I got from women, the less interested I became in our relationship, and the more I cheated. Since she was my first and only real girlfriend, I couldn't bring myself to break up with her. I was afraid. At some point, a beautiful 18-year-old Russian girl started working with us. We would sneak out and bang on breaks, in parks, at my girlfriend's and my place, and at her place. Only it wasn't really her place. She still lived at home with her parents. One time, I gave her a ride home on my motorcycle. We did our thing, and then we were on her back porch saying goodbye while she was still bare when someone came in the front door. Of course it was her parents. I bolted, but I forgot my jacket and helmet on the porch. By the time I realized, it was way too late. There was no turning back. I rode home freaking out, trying to come up with some lie to explain where my stuff had gone. I told her some BS story. I can't even remember now. The next day, I talked to the Russian girl, expecting her to just bring me my stuff. Nope, her father, who spoke no English, had found it and wouldn't give it back unless we met face to face. She and I got our stories straight, that I gave her a ride home and asked to leave my stuff there, because I left with a friend in his car. The hitch was that the Russian girl didn't want her father to think she was doing things in his house, so I brought my girlfriend in. I said something like, "I have to come clean." Then told her the same story we told her father and asked her to come with me to meet him. Not my proudest moment. She came. Everyone bought our story. I got my stuff back, and my girlfriend and I broke up a few months later, when our lease on the house was up. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.